These two are parallel. And now I'll take the Bernzomatic torch and I'll just solder that plate right in place. And once it's nice and soldered, just take that out. Okay, I'm drilling the other side. I moved it over 1/4 of an inch, drilling the center hole. That's through. Back over at the workbench, I got some 1/8 inch stock. I'm going to mark this off at 2 inches with the Sharpie, and then just hacksaw it off. That'll be the shaft, and then the crank pin shows 3/4 of an inch. So I'll mark it off at 1 inch, and then we'll trim it down to 3/4. All right, there's roughly 2 inches. Cut that first. Put it in there. Just mark it at 1 inch. Give it a little room. We're back out in the shop this morning. It's a little chilly in Virginia. Mostly rain though right now. The snow is all melted. I got the shop up to 55 degrees with the wood stove. That's keeping my coffee warm. So we're back to working on the little oscillating steam engine from Vic Smead's boat book, Boat Modeling by Vic Smead. This is the engine. This is the book, and this is the picture of the engine that was in the book. I blew it up. So it has the frame of the engine is sheet metal, and I have discerned that it's about 3 inches by 1 inch on the main plate, and because it shows 1 inch here and here. If you measure it out, it works out. So I'm going to fold that up today. I've already made one, but I think the metal was a little thin. So I'm going to try another one. I've got a piece of sheet metal from ductwork underneath a house. We're doing some work on a house and had a lot of leftover my house. So years ago, this piece is probably 10 years old. But it measures 19 thou, and it's pretty stout, and it solders easy. You can cut it with regular aviation 10 snips, which I have here. These are the straight ones. They make these in left, right, and straight. So I got to studying this diagram, and if you don't have 1, 2, 3 blocks, and you do any kind of layout work, model making, these things are great. They measure 3 by 2 by 1, and they're guaranteed parallel, and 90 on the edges, so that you can just use them for everything. So I'm looking at this diagram, and it's 3 by 1. So I'm going to use a 1, 2, 3 block as a folding die. I don't know what you would call it, at a pattern to make a nice accurate little engine frame for this oscillating steam engine. Hopefully it'll look like this when I get through. This drawing is A lot of the dimensions are just, they're not there. It was just kind of an illustration in the book, to, I think, for the reader to, for the author to illustrate what was possible. But I think I can, that combined with some other engines I've made, just adding all the information together, I came up with a 3/8 inch bore. I have a little piece of 3/8 inch brass there, 3/8 inch bore and a 1/2 inch stroke. I went to a reenactment a few years ago and I picked up some of these blank shells. They were blanks, and they let you pick them up after the battle. And these might make really interesting cylinders for the steam engine. I have several of them. I think I could cut them off and polish them up, and they'd make nice cylinders. So before I do this, I'm going to go get one of my other steam engines, show you the principle of how it runs. The engine design from this came from the FizzWiz, and it's an oscillating engine. But the cool thing about this engine is it's double acting. So that's why both ends of the cylinder have to be sealed. And it has a 3/8 inch bore, but I used a steel cylinder plate. You know, of course, that's subject to rust. It works. I keep it oiled up, and it does run. It's dual acting. It's supposed to be self-starting. And I've got this little homemade boiler. I might do a little round boiler for this engine I'm making, because my intention is to put it in a small boat. But this is an oscillating engine, and it's going to be about the same size. The frame won't be the cast frame I have here. It's going to be sheet metal. And it's only going to be single acting, just to keep everything simple and easy. I'm just going to lay out a rectangle and then put two kind of ears on it here using the 1, 2, 3 block. And I'm not worried about getting permanent magic marker, so-called permanent magic marker, on my 1, 2, 3 block, because all you need is some alcohol, and I have a jar of denatured alcohol. Denatured alcohol will clean epoxy off your fingers, by the way, if you get epoxy on your fingers. So there's the layout. That's the start of the engine. Now I have to figure out what this angle is right here. It's kind of an odd angle, but it measures 73 degrees. I want my model engine to look like the picture, so the information's in there. You just have to get it out using the picture. So some denatured alcohol from Lowe's. Clean up your block too. Alright, I've got lines marked off that I can see adequately. As Jed Clampett used to say in the Beverly Hillbillies, I'm going to commence to whittling. There it is. Now another way to do this that I did on the first one I made, I just blew this. I kept blowing this up on my printer until it measured 3 inches, and then I glued it. I glued that pattern right onto a piece of metal. Cut it out that way. And that worked. So this has to be cut off and these have to be bent 90. We do that in the vise. We'll just do it with some pliers. You could use vice grips on this. Just snip this off. This is going to be rough, but I'll clean it up on the grinder. These aren't too sharp. What a mess. I'll bend these in the vise. Sheet metal work in the grinder's really dicey, so I'm wearing gloves because it'll get hot. Metal's sharp, and I'm wearing my safety goggles. Pretty good for now. Just going to start it here, then I'm going to finish it with the 1, 2, 3 block because it has a nice square edge. I'm just going to start it on the vise here. I'll make sure to go the right way. Does it matter? I guess it doesn't matter as long as I do both of them the same direction. That's pretty good. That's one. Important that this is parallel. Now you can't get it square because the geometry of the vise, it won't let you. So now you go to the 1, 2, 3 block. Put my homemade soft jaws in here so I won't scratch up the 1, 2, 3 block. This is just this was like a piece of copper pipe that I just bent to make soft jaws so that it don't scratch stuff up when I put it in my steel vise jaws. Of course, you can buy soft jaws, plastic or aluminum soft jaws. I hope that gives me enough room. Try something. Try. I don't know if this will work or not. Oh, it's kind of making a mess. I guess the pros would use a bending brake on this. Now I need to do these. Something doesn't look right on those tabs. So I have folded up two of the frames now. And the next step is to make this little piece here. This little back plate, which will, you can call it the bearing holder, bearing support. They call it the rear bearing plate. So what I've done is I take a piece of cardboard. The best cardstock is a cereal box, or I really like Premium Saltines. It's a great box. So I have a piece of cardboard, and I folded it so it fits in here exactly. And I put little ears on it here to hold the solder better. So when I solder it in, it'll be it has more surface area to hold. So then I take these, bring it over here to the sheet metal, and using a scratch awl, I've scratched these out, and I cut them out 1 inch, pretty much 1 inch square, and then I added 1/8 of an inch on each end. So to get these bends to be nice and straight and even, I rigged up a little brake. So I've got two cutting tools, like 3/4 inch high-speed steel, and then I've got the little piece of metal, got it in here at about 1/8 of an inch, and I'm going to just fold it over. So this is like a crude brake, right? A crude. Trying it on the other one. These didn't come out exactly the same width. It actually looks pretty good. I'll clean that paper off before I solder it. I'll clean them up on the sander. I have a little tiny belt sander, and I'll clean those up. Then we'll solder them on. Just a butane torch to solder these together, and then drill the holes. And once we drill the holes, I'll have to make some bushings. I'll make some probably bronze or brass bushings that'll be soldered in, one on each side. This just isn't doing it. That's what it's supposed to do. How come it wouldn't do that on the other side? There we go. Come on. Flowed. Ta-da! All right, I'm going to do the second one now. Thin sheet is hard because this much heat just warps the crap out of it. I mean, this was meant to be soldered, but I'm going to have to do some other soldering on here, so I was hoping to not have to worry about melting this while I'm soldering the bearings in. That's the second one. Once it cools off, I'll hammer it a little bit, clean it up. Should be alright. Alright, so we've got these guys all brazed up.